Shadid Muhammad. You need 1 minute? Nah, problem. Are y'all ready? Well, before we get started, we definitely need your support. Like I said, this is a fundraiser for Masjid Beit Hamas, and we definitely need your support. This was a great weekend here. We put together a $50 ticket for the whole weekend. And it's really a fundraiser. So we definitely need y'all support. That's really not, we definitely need your support. So there should be some baskets floating through. So as much as you can possibly help us so we can continue to do this. You ready? Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Shadid Muhammad, in 2007, graduate from the Islamic University of Medina in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. He holds a bachelor's degree from the College of Hadith with a concentration on Hadith sciences. He has extensive experience in the field of da'wah and translation. He has lectured in many masjids and colleges throughout the country, having translated for some of the most renowned Islamic scholars of our time. He is also a regular visitor or part of actually the family of Beit Hamas, so we definitely appreciate his help and support. We always get something from him. So without further ado, Shadid Muhammad.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. So the topic of my discussion today will be 10 things that keep us separated, disunited. I'm going to begin with a line of poetry by Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, and I believe it's pertinent to what we're getting ready to discuss. He has a line of poetry, or he has a whole book of poetry called Muniyya, and the ending of each line ends in Ani. He said, rahimahullah ta'ala, وَالْعِلْمْ يَدْخُلُ قَلْبَ كُلَّ مُوَفَّقٍ مِنْ غَيْرِ أَبْوَابٍ وَلَا اسْتِئْذَانٍ ويرده والمحروم من خذلانه لا تشكنا اللهم بالحرمان. He said that knowledge enters the heart of everyone who has been favored by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without any barriers or permission. Knowledge just enters. If you're muwaffaq, if you're someone that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted tawfiq, knowledge enters into your heart بِغَيْرِ أَبْوَابٍ وَلَا اسْتِئْذَانٍ, without any barriers, without any doors to knock on, and without any permission. He said, وَيَرُدُّهُ الْمَحْرُومُ مِنْ خُذْلَانِهِ. He said, and the one that has been deprived of knowledge will not receive knowledge. لَا تَشْكِنَا اللَّهُمَّ بِالْحُرْمَانِ. Oh Allah, do not render us wretched so that we are deprived of your knowledge. Separation and division was condemned in the Quran in many places, with many nations, for one reason. Separation, discord, fragmentation, division was all condemned in the Quran. Never does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talk about separation, talk about division in a manner that is praiseworthy, because there's nothing praiseworthy about it. Fragmentation, division, separation is condemned in the Quran. Many nations were condemned for it. Many places in the Quran it is mentioned, and it's all for one reason. Because fragmentation and division infringes on the fundamental obligation on every human being, and that is to spend their entire lives in complete devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, قُلْ إِنَّ الصَّلَاةِ وَنُسُكِي وَمَحْيَايَ وَمَمَاتِي لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ لَا شَرِيكَ لَهُ. Say, indeed, my salah, my prayer, my sacrifice, my life, my death are all for Allah. Your life and your death, all for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah mentions in the Hadith al-Qudsi, يَا ابْنَ آدَمْ إِنِّي خَلَقْتُكَ لِنَفْسِي وَخَلَقْتُ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ لَكَ فَبِحَقِّ عَلَيْكَ لَا تَشْتَغِلْ بِمَا خَلَقْتُهُ لَكَ عَمَّنْ خَلَقْتُكَ لَهُ. He said, O child of Adam, I created you for me. Your whole being, your whole existence is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every inch of you belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, O child of Adam, I created you for me. And I created everything for you. So based upon my right over you, do not busy or preoccupy yourself with the things that I created for you instead of the one whom I created you for. You belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But how could you serve one creator, one Lord, while you have a plethora of elements tugging at your loyalty? And this is what division and separation represents. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave an example in the Quran. He said, ضرب الله مثلا رجلا فيه شركاء متشاكسون يعني متنازعون ورجلا سلم لرجل هل يستويان مثلا الحمد لله بل أكثرهم لا يعلمون. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that Allah puts forth for you a metaphor, an example of a man belonging to many partners. Mutashakisuna, arguing and bickering over who's going to own this person. وَرَجُلًا سَلَمَ لِرَجُلًا. And then another man who only belongs to one owner. هَلْ يَسْتَوِيَانِ مَثَلًا. Are these two examples the same? This is a rhetorical question. Are these two examples the same? Say alhamdulillah, but most people have no idea. They have no clue. That a man belonging to multiple partners, multiple owners, fighting and bickering over who's going to own him, and then you have this one man only belonging to one owner. That is the believer. You belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already informed us that it is not man's nature to multitask emotionally. It's not our nature to belong emotionally to one or more than one person or group or entity or clique or sect. That's not our nature as human beings. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, مَا جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لِرَجُلٍ مِّن قَلْبَيْنِ فِي جَوْفِهِ. That Allah has not made for any one man two hearts. You have one heart, which means that you can only concentrate your loyalty on one thing at a time. This is because Islam's injunctions, most of them, if not all of them, are designed to keep you spiritually, emotionally, and unconditionally independent of anyone or anything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is Tawheed. When you belong to a clique or a sect, you have removed the rope of Tawheed from around your neck. You, as a servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, are supposed to remain mutafarriq lillah, independent of any entity other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your loyalty is only to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what Abu Bakr was trying to convey to the Sahaba when the Prophet ﷺ died. He stood in front of them and he said, "Man kana ya'budu Muhammadin fa inna Muhammadan qad mata." Whoever from amongst you used to worship Muhammad, Muhammad's dead. Meaning your mission is over. If you were in this totally for the personality of Muhammad, then Muhammad is dead. Which means your mission is over. وَمَنْ كَانَ يَعْبُدُ اللَّهَ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ حَيٌّ لَا يَمُوتُ. But whoever is in this to worship Allah, to serve Allah, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ever living and He never dies. Even the Prophet ﷺ told us, مَنْ صَنَعَ إِلَيْكُمْ مَعْرُوفًا فَكَافِئُوا. That whoever does something for you, then return the favor. He said, فَإِنْ لَمْ تَجِدْ مَا تُكَافِئُهُ بِهِ فَادْعُ اللَّهَ حَتَّى رَأَيْتَ أَنَّكَ كَفَيْتَهُ. That if you do not have the wherewithal to return back to the person the favor that they gave to you. Make dua for the person until you feel that you have repaid them. Because it is a natural sentiment of the human being when someone does something for you, you feel indebted to that person. And you should never feel indebted to anybody, anyone except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a foundation. Before we talk about the dangers and the elements that are here that separate us and divide us. And it's the lack of understanding of this first and foremost that keeps us divided and disunited. As Ibn Qayyim mentioned in another line of his poetry, Nuniyah, he said, فَلِوَاحِدٍ كُنْ وَاحِدٍ فِي وَاحِدٍ أَعْنِ سَبِيلَ الْحَقِّ وَالْإِيمَانِ هذه ثلاث مسعدات للذي قد نالها والفضل للمنان فإذا هي اجتمعت لنفس حرة بلغت من العليا كل مكان. Only a person that understands Arabic would understand how deep this is. Translating it into English for you is going to lose some of the value of this line of poetry. He said, فَلِوَاحِدٍ, so for the love of one, كُنْ وَاحِدٍ, be one. فِي وَاحِدٍ, in one. أَعْنِ سَبِيلَ الْحَقِّ وَالْإِيمَانِ. And what I mean is the path of truth and the path of faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, these are three mus'idat, these three elements that will save your life in this world. قَدْ نَالَهَا وَالْفَضْلُ لِلْمَنَّانِ. And whoever is able to achieve these three, then the virtue, then the blessing is from Al-Mannani, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who benefits his servants. He said, and when these three unite in the heart of a slave that is free, nafsin hurra, you are free, you don't belong to anyone. He said, if these three elements are united in the heart of an individual that is free, he will be superior fi kulli makani, no matter where he is. When the Prophet ﷺ died and Bilal was migrating to Sham, to the area of Damascus, where many of the Sahaba relocated after the death of the Prophet ﷺ, Bilal said that after the death of the Prophet ﷺ, he could not bring himself to call the adhan again. The first time that he ever uttered the words for the adhan was by the commandment of the Prophet ﷺ. He used to say to Bilal, Arihna, ya Bilal, give us alleviation from the pain of this world, ya Bilal, by calling us to the salah. When we hear the adhan to the salah, it's the sweetest sound that you could ever hear. The sweetest sound that you could ever hear, because now you get a chance to take a break from this world and go and communicate with the Lord of the world. Right? And so when Bilal was departing, Abu Bakr told Bilal, we need you here in Medina to call the adhan. And Bilal said something powerful to Abu Bakr. He said, Ya Abu Bakr, in a'taqtani li nafsik abqa. He said, Bilal, he said, Abu Bakr, if you free me for yourself, then I'll stay. Because Abu Bakr was the one who purchased his freedom. He said, in a'taqtani abqa. If you free me for yourself, I'll stay. وَإِنْ أَعْتَقْتَنِي لِلَّهِ فَدَعْنِي. He said, but if you free me for Allah, then let me go. You don't own me. I don't belong to you. I don't belong to any of you. If you free me for yourself, then I'll stay. But if you free me for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then leave me to go where I please. Unfortunately, this unity and fragmentation has become the new norm in our communities and many African American Muslim communities, while unity is all but unnatural. And when the unnatural becomes the normal, it becomes very difficult to gauge what the real norm is. I'll say that again. When the unnatural becomes the norm, it becomes difficult to gauge what the norm is, what the real norm is. The real norm is unity. But we've been functioning with disunity for so long, it has now become the new norm for us. So we don't know anything else. Our children don't know anything else but fragmentation and division, because that's all they've seen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned this same dynamic with the Christians. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, مِنَ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّ النَّصَارَى and from those who say we are Nasara, we are Christians. أَخَذْنَا مِيثَاقَهُم. We took from them a covenant that they would be obedient to Allah and they would remain united upon obedience to Allah. فَنَسُوا حَظًّا مِمَّا ذُكِّرُوا بِهِ. But they forgot a portion of the covenant that they agreed to. فَأَغْرَيْنَا بَيْنَهُمَ الْعَدَاوَةَ وَالْبَغْضَاءَ إِلَى يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ. So we placed between them enmity and hatred and division and separation until Yawm al-Qiyamah. فَسَوْفَ يُنَبِّئُهُمُ اللَّهُ بِمَا كَانُوا يَصْنَعُونَ. And soon will Allah inform them about the mistakes that they made, about the things that they did. So if you pay attention to this ayah, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took the covenant from the Christians that they would be obedient to Him, they would follow the messenger, and they would be united upon that. But they forgot, just like we forgot that unity was part of our religion. We accepted the da'wah of Salafiyah, but in accepting that, we forgot that unity is an asl, min usul ad-din. It's from the foundational principles of our religion. You don't make hajj by yourself. You don't pray by yourself. All of the injunctions in Islam are designed to keep us united. While we take something that we claim is the truth and we use it to divide ourselves. Knowledge doesn't do that. Ignorance does that. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that because they forgot about a portion of the covenant that we took from them, we placed between them animosity and hatred until Yawm al-Qiyamah. So the nations of the Christians that come later on, they would think that disunity and disharmony is the norm. When in fact, the latter generations don't realize that they broke a covenant with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and what they are experiencing is the new norm of disunity and animosity and hatred as a punishment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because they did not fulfill their portion of the covenant. So perhaps what our children are seeing of these fragmented, these disunited communities, this has become the new norm, and they don't realize that this is not the way it is supposed to be. So, without a doubt, there are elements that keep us as a community fragmented and divided because it serves the interests of individuals that don't serve our interests. You got to think about it. Who benefits from us being fragmented and divided? Think about that. Who benefits from that? Because somebody's benefiting from it. 20 years have gone by and we haven't produced much. And when you take a look around, other communities seem like they're thriving. They have their problems and their challenges, but their problems and challenges look nothing like the problems and challenges we have. And don't think that communities, nations cannot be jealous of other nations. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned about the Jews, about Bani Israel, أَمْ يَحْسَدُونَ النَّاسَ عَلَى مَا آتَاهُمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. Are you jealous of these nations because of the bounty and the virtue that Allah has given them over everyone else? Because without a doubt, there's potential in this room right now. And there's some people that are hoping that that potential never gets a platform to flourish. And they will do whatever it takes to make sure we stay exactly where we are. So while this community falls apart, that community falls apart, other communities seem to be doing okay. And you have to understand that that's by design. That's not a coincidence. So inshallah ta'ala, we're going to mention 10 reasons that keep us separated and divided. I want you guys to take close attention. We may not get through the whole 10, but as the scholars say, مَا لَا يُدْرَكْ كُلَّهُ فَلَا يُتْرَكْ جُلَّهُ. If we can't complete all of it, then we won't leave most of it. So we'll try to cover as much as we can. The first thing, at the top of the list, of the things that keep us disunited and separated is shaitan. The chief divider and separator. We don't factor in shaitan because we're constantly overestimating ourselves and underestimating him. We don't factor in shaitan. We don't see his actions. We don't see him coming a mile away in certain things that take place in our communities. But he is the chief separator himself, responsible for much of the separation that we experience as human beings on many levels, starting with the highest level of separation, and that was separating us from our eternal home, which was Jannah. We are not supposed to be here. We started off somewhere else. We ended up here. But this wasn't our original home. And he separated us from that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warned us about Shaitan and his trickery. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-A'raf, Surah number 7, ayah 27, Ya bani Adam, la yaftinannakum ash-shaytanu kama akhraja abawaykum min al-jannah. O children of Adam, do not let Shaitan become a fitna for you, like he got your parents kicked out of Jannah. Not only did he separate Adam from his home, he separates man from his wife. Chief separator. The Prophet ﷺ said, Inna Iblis yaba'a arshahu ala al-ma'. That Shaitan places his throne over the water, trying to be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is his God complex. Because in the beginning, Allah's throne was over the water. So Shaitan places his throne on the water. وَيَبْعَثَ سَرَايَاهُ فَأَدْنَاهُمْ مِنْهُ مَنْزِلَةً أَعْظَمَهُمْ فِتْنَةً. Then Shaitan dispatches his workers out into the world. And the closest of Shaitan's helpers are the ones that create the most fitna. I'll say that again. The closest of Shaitan's helpers from the shayateen are the ones that create the most fitna amongst the people. He said, فَيَجِيءُ أَحَدُهُمْ فَيَقُولُ فَعَلْتُ كَذَا وَكَذَا فَيَقُولُ شَيْطَانٌ مَا صَنَعْتَ شَيْئًا. He says, so one of the jinn comes to him and said, I did this and that. And Shaitan says, you haven't done nothing. فَيَجِيءُ أَحَدُهُمْ فَيَقُولُ مَا تَرَكْتُ حَتَّى فَرَّقْتُ بَيْنَهُ وَبَيْنَ زَوْجَتِهِ فَيَقُولُ الشَّيْطَانُ فَيُدْنِي مِنْهُ فَيَقُولُ نِعْمَةَ عَنْكَ. He says, so another shayateen, another jinn comes to him and says that I did not leave the man until he separated himself from his wife. And Shaitan says, come here. And he embraces him and he said, Ni'mata ant. I love you. How good of a servant you are. Chief separator. So think for a moment. Do you think that this creature who prides himself on separating man from the things that are most dear to him would not have a hand in separating our communities? Do you think for one moment that he is not behind all of the fragmentation and the division that goes on in our communities? I don't give him salams, I don't pray over here, stay away from this one, and all this other stuff. You don't think Shaitan had a hand in any of that? Absolutely. The chief deceiver, the chief separator. But why? Because being separated and divided amongst ourselves, it thwarts our potential to reach, the heights that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has planned for us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Inna shaytan kad ayasa an ya'buduhu al-musalluna fi jazirat al-arab, lakin al-tahrish baynahum. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, Shaitan has given up any hope that he will be worshipped by those who establish the regular prayer, but he sows discord between you. He knows we're not going to worship him. And so what he tries to do is get us not to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he does that through the division, the disunity, the fragmentation, and the separation of our communities. For the 20 years that we have been going through these issues, can anyone say that you've had a prayer that you've actually enjoyed living in these communities, in these environments? From the moment you step into the masjid, you feel the negative energy from the moment you step inside of some of the masajid. From the moment you see, I know for me anyway, when I see certain brothers, wallahu al-azim, my whole body energy changes. Just seeing you changes my whole mood. You don't have to say anything to me. Just looking at your face changes my whole mood. Some of us avoid certain masajid. Some of us don't even go to certain masajid. If you are in an area and you know that there's a masjid there, I'm not going in there to pray. You don't think that that is infringing on your servitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Absolutely, and that's exactly what Shaitan wants. Some of us have abandoned the masajid altogether. This is why I don't even go to the masjids and pray. You don't think Shaitan is ecstatic about that? That's exactly, he got you exactly where he wants you. Which is why all types of doors have been opened for our children to engage in sin the way that they do. So, understand that Shaitan has a hand in this. Number two, and this is going to probably take us a place that you weren't expecting. Number two, from the things that keep us separated and divided, is psychological conditioning for division. Some of us are wired from the very beginning to be divisive. Everywhere we go, we create this era, this aura, this atmosphere of division and separation everywhere we go. We all know 1, 2, 3, 4 people. No matter where they go, they create discord, separation, no matter where they go. Some of us have been wired from the cradle for that. And we don't even realize that it's a psychological conditioning. The scholars, they have a saying, من تعود على الذل والمهانة لا يدرك طعم العزة والكرامة. That whoever has been conditioned to be inferior, to be humiliated, to be inferior, if you have been conditioned for this, you will never taste honor, wa karama, you will never taste honor and dignity. Because you have been conditioned for such. You understand? If you have been conditioned to be inferior, and a lot of times that starts in the home, you will never know what being honorable and being dignified looks like. You have some sisters with all due respect to you. You have some sisters who you was a side piece before Islam, and now you're a side piece in Islam. That's because you were conditioned to be a side piece. And so you sit here and you're wondering why this brother, you married to this brother, you married to that brother, and you're constantly being treated less than. Because you have conditioned yourself to accept that status, and you will never seek anything better than that. Because that's the way that you are wired. You have conditioned yourself to be like that. And then you blame the men for it, but it's really your poor choices. That's not to take the responsibility off the brothers in the community. Yes, we have brothers in the community that are foul, absolutely. But a brother cannot be foul with you, sister, without your permission. He can't be foul with you without your consent. Real talk. But if you've been conditioned a certain way, then you don't know anything other than that. من تعود على الذل والمهانة لن يدرك الكرامة والعزة والكرامة. If you have been conditioned to be inferior, then you will never know what being honorable and superior looks like. Many of us, and I'm talking about Islamic leaders as well, many of us come from homes and families that were fragmented and separated, disoriented by a number of conditions. Social, economic, psychological, mental, you name it. Many of us come from homes like that. And unfortunately, as a result of this, we have failed, even in our imamship, even in our leadership, we fail to transcend this mentality of separation and division. So when we get a sense of problems emerging in the Muslim community, we rush to remedy it with the best way we know how, and that's to separate and divide. That is our go-to. That is our default button, to separate, because we don't know anything else. That's all we know, is to separate and divide. So we separate, we divide, we fragment the community. Many of us as men, the moment problems arise in our marriage, I want a divorce, this ain't working for us. Sister, I think we should go our separate ways. How many of you heard that? How many of us have uttered that? That didn't come from you using your Islamic knowledge. That comes from your background. Sis, I don't think this is working. Of course it ain't working. We're two different people, came from two different backgrounds, sharing the same space at the same time. Obviously, it's not working. We have to make it work. That's what a marriage is about. There's certain souls that had an affinity to one another before we inherited these bodies, but they are few and far in between. Most of us were completely opposites. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you the opposite person in your marriage for a reason. Because all of the problems that you experience in your marriage is a reflection of the problems that you have inside of you. Fix you, fix your marriage. Stop jumping from relationship to relationship to relationship looking for the quote-unquote right one. You had the right one the first time. And sometimes we don't realize that until we've been married 3, 4, 5 times and we say, damn, I should have stayed with the first person. Real talk. You had it right the first time. But we have been conditioned to not tolerate, to not stand in our discomfort. So as a result of that, we remedy every problem in our lives by running. And unfortunately, we have Muslim leadership in our community that does the same exact thing, and they pull the whole community with them. I'm leaving this community. Look how many brothers left Masjid Rahman. This particular imam moves to Atlanta, you take the whole half of the community with you. Because this is how we have been conditioned. We remedy everything with running. And we don't realize that we are destroying, fragmenting, separating, dividing our communities as a result of it. And people who grow up in homes that were tolerant of problem children, they have a greater sense of unity because that's all they know. When you put people in leaderships that come from huge families, doesn't necessarily mean there's no dysfunction there, but they come from huge families. You will find that leaders like that are more likely to be tolerant of problems and challenges, and they stay put because that's how they've been reared. That's how they were conditioned. It's no coincidence that the Prophet ﷺ used to be a sheep herder. The Prophet ﷺ said, مَا مِن نَبِيٍّ إِلَّا كَانَ رَاعَ الْغَنَمِ. There's no prophet that came before me except that he used to be a sheep herder. They said, وَأَنْتَ يَا رَسُولُ اللَّهِ, even you, O Messenger of Allah. He said, even me. And Imam al-Nawawi, rahimahullah ta'ala, in his explanation of this hadith, he said the reason why prophets were sheep herders before they actually became prophets, he said, al-hikmah fi dhalika, the wisdom in that, qabl al-nubuwwah, before they become prophets, and يحصل لهم التمرن برعيتهم على ما يكلفون من القيام بأمر أمتهم ولأن في مخالطتها يحصل لهم الحلم والشفقة. He said the hikmah, the wisdom in the prophets and messengers becoming sheep herders before they become prophets and messengers is so that they get to practice being tolerant and patient. Sheep are the most difficult animals, as Sheikh Uthaymeen mentioned, the most difficult animals to keep in one place together. We always see those images of the sheep jumping out or jumping over. That's real. It's very difficult to get them to stay in one place at the same time. So by the prophets and messengers having the sheep herding experience, it prepares them for the responsibility of taking care of an ummah when they become prophets. And it teaches them, as he said, al-hilm wa shafaqa. It teaches them al-hilm, it teaches them tolerance, and it teaches them shafaqa, compassion. Which is what a person who is driven by separating and dividing doesn't understand that. They don't understand tolerance, be patient. They don't understand that. So they separate the whole community and they take everybody along with them. We have to correct that problem. When we put people and leaders themselves, imams have to humble themselves and realize that they don't have all of the answers. They don't. And some of our personal issues in our own personal lives now begins to trickle over into our leadership and infringe on our ability to serve you, the community, the way that we are supposed to. Some imams, we have mental health issues that are never addressed. And we stand in front of the community, we grab the microphone, we speak a little bit of Arabic, and we paint this picture. We throw a blanket over our problems and act like everything is okay, and everything is not okay. And many of the community see it. It's not okay. Because we're hurting the community in the worst way. Man. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, he mentioned a very profound statement. He said, مَا تَكْرَهُونَ فِي الْإِجْتِمَاعِ خَيْرٌ مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ فِي الْفُرَقَةِ. What you hate united is better than what you love divided. Think about that. Yeah, you might not like Shadi Muhammad. I'm not here for you to like me. I'm not an adolescent. I'm not looking for that social component to become a whole man. I'm past that phase in my life. But you don't have to like me, but we have to work together. We have to cooperate with one another because we have a bigger picture here. But it's like children in the sandbox. I'm going to take my toys over here. I don't want to play with you anymore. Like, what are we in preschool? What are we in pre-K? You can't get 2 imams, 3, 4 imams to sit in the same room at the same time. If he's going to be there, I don't want to meet with him. It's like, what are you in pre-K? If this simple matter, you can't resolve this, then maybe you need to reconsider your position of leadership. Maybe you're not fit for this. But you're not going to take your community, go off into a corner somewhere and worship, excluding the rest of the ummah. That's not the way that it works. That's not the blueprint that the Prophet ﷺ gave us. And so a person who has been psychologically conditioned to separate when things don't align with his paradigm, he will never understand or grasp the concept of unity. He will never get it. We will always look for reasons not to unite instead of looking for the reasons to unite. I can think of 1,000 reasons right now why we should be united. And some imams that don't agree, that don't want to be united, will think of 1,000 reasons why we shouldn't be. Because you have been wired that way. Number 3, and this is a big one for all of us, from the things that keep us disunited is our ego. Yeah, the ego, man. We'll toss our whole marriage out to salvage our ego. We'll toss the kids, we'll throw everything away just to keep that ego. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised Jannah for those who did not seek superiority on the earth. And there's no greater detriment to the building and constructing of a community or of anything that is of value, of substance, that affects the lives of many than the ego. And this is why the reward for suppressing the ego is so great. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, in Surah Al-Qasas, ayat 83, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, تِلْكَ الدَّارُ الْآخِرَةِ نَجْعَلَهَا لِلَّذِينَ لَا يُرِيدُونَ عُلُوًّا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَا فَسَادًا. That this is the home of the hereafter, that we have promised for those of you who do not seek عُلُوًّا فِي الْأَرْضِ. You do not seek superiority in the earth, وَلَا فَسَادًا, nor corruption. And the scholars, they say, al-'uluwan fil ard, superiority in the earth means at-tarafu' ala khalqillah wa ta'azum alayha. It's to seek to place yourself above the creatures of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the servants of Allah. The ego, brothers and sisters, manifests itself in the form of making one's opinion supersede that of others. My opinion is the only opinion. The Prophet ﷺ informed us that there will come a time where people would become highly opinionated. We would live in a time that this ummah would experience a time where people put their opinions above everything. The Prophet ﷺ told one of his companions, "I'tamiru bil ma'ruf wa tanaha 'anil munkar." Continue to enjoin what is good and forbid what is evil. Hatta ra'ayta shuhhan muta', until you see people obeying their fear of poverty. And people following their desires. And everyone being so amazed with his own opinions. He said, when you see that time come upon you, He said, Da anka amr al-awam. Leave the common folk alone because there is no saving them when this time arrives. Da anka al-awam فإنما وراءكم أيام الصبر الصابر على دينه كالقابل على جمله. He said that there will be nothing but times of patience after that. A person being patient on his religion in those times will be like a person trying to hold hot coal in his hand. And here we are. Everybody got an opinion. You haven't studied anything about Islam, but you got an opinion. You don't know how to bow out graciously and say, you know what? I don't really have any knowledge about that. I'm going to pull out. I'm going to pull out of that situation. I don't have anything to say. There were scholars like Imam Malik, the great scholar of Islam, Imam Malik ibn Anas, who ala tawaqqaf 40 sana, who took an opinion that he didn't have an opinion about a particular issue for 40 years. He's studying the issue for 40 years, and every time he's asked about it, he says, I don't have an opinion about it. I got to do more research on it. And today, we'll say, I have an opinion, and then you ask the person, where's the dalil? Oh, I read it in this book. Or this person told me. Or this one said this. Uthbut al-arsh kush. As the Arabs have a saying, as we have it in English, you put the cart before the horse, man. Or the horse before the cart. Get the dalil first, and then build your opinion based upon that. Don't create an opinion, and then go back and search for the dalil. That's not the way of Ahlul Sunnah. We don't go back and look for dalil. We don't say this person is an innovator, and then we ask, well, what's his innovation? Well, let me go look through his CDs and tapes. And oh, here we go. We found something. This 2-second clip right here. He said this. He's a deviant. But you said he was a deviant before you even produced, and that's not even dalil. What type of religion? I mean, like, if I was a non-Muslim from the outside looking in, I would think that we are crazy. Bunch of majaneen, bunch of insane individuals walking around. Everybody got an opinion, following their own desires. Nobody quoting the Quran. Khutbahs that are given by some of the same people who say they Salafi, and you don't even hear an ayat, a whole khutbah. How? How you give a khutbah, and then after you're done with the khutbah, you tell somebody else to leave the salah because you haven't memorized the Quran? How? What type of Salafiyya is that? Who is going to respect that? But the ego destroys us, man, fragments our communities. And when we look at the story of Musa, alayhi salam, and Harun, we see not only a biological bond of brotherhood transcend into a mission of guiding an entire community away from human servitude to another human being, but we also see that in the face of real social work, what Musa and Harun was doing was called social work. Because they not only had to remove Bani Israel from Fir'aun, they also had to reprogram them. Because they were, here again, conditioned. When you have been conditioned a certain way, it's very difficult to have this person think other than that. Because you've been conditioned. Bani Israel used to worship Fir'aun. Fir'aun told Musa, there's no God but me. He told Musa, he told the magicians when they bowed down, he said, do you prostrate before I give you permission to prostrate? That sounds like us. You giving salams to Shadeed Muhammad, then you hear what the sheikh said? Nah, don't talk. You've been conditioned, and you don't even realize it. Psychological conditioning. The same people that look like you, that come from where you come from, took travelers, taking his family halfway across the world to go learn Arabic, Quran, and all of this other stuff to come back into your neighborhood and teach you, and you got somebody who don't give a damn about your neighborhood tell you you can't listen to him. You think about the psychological conditioning of that mentality. You can sit on a courtesy, on a chair, thousands of miles away in a Muslim country, and then tell the people, don't take from him. Don't listen to him. SubhanAllah Azim. And we adhere to that. People who wouldn't listen to me, I've received emails from people who said, I never even heard you, but because of what these people said, I will never listen to you. Psychological conditioning. Bani Israel used to worship Fir'aun. Tell you about the psychological conditioning. When Musa took Bani Israel from Fir'aun, and we went to go receive revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, going for 40 nights. Bani Israel could not wait until Musa came back with further instructions. So what did they do? Under the command of Samiri, they took off all of their gold, they melted it down, and they created a calf, a baby cow, so they can worship it. Psychological conditioning. You have been conditioned to serve and worship something, no matter what it is. But it can't just be God. It has to be something or someone tangible. Psychological conditioning. Even though he removed them from the shackles of servitude to Fir'aun, they took it upon themselves to worship. As I gave you the quote by Carter G. Woodson many times, when a person is inferior, you don't ever have to worry about his statements or his actions. You've been conditioned to be inferior. And if there's not a back door, his very nature will carve one out. Because that's your nature. You have been conditioned to be inferior and to remain that way. But guess what? We are going to end up having a civil war because I ain't conditioned like that. And as long as I'm here and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving me life and blood is flowing through my veins, we're going to fight because I'm not built like that. And I'm not accepting that. Those standards are less than what I had as a non-Muslim. And I refuse to become a Muslim and become a servant to anybody's opinion. I refuse. So if that's what our ummah is going to come to, then we have to draw a line in the sand, and I will be standing in my discomfort, and I don't care. Because many, and let's be real, because many prior to this lecture here would probably not have been here. You hear now, walillahi alhamd. But that is after a journey of confusion. Real talk. I've shaken hands with individuals who look me in my face that prior to this 2-3 years ago, you wouldn't even give me salams. And it's all good. I don't hold nothing against you, man. You was a slave. I wasn't. Alhamdulillah, the light bulb went off. And I'm not saying that in any disrespectful way. But we got to call it as it is. We're not going to make a transition and act like I don't own what I was and what I was doing. No, you own that. And stand in that discomfort. Stand in that discomfort, but don't get up brand new and act like, we were all on the same page. MashaAllah, I'm down with the movement, brother. Nah, man. Nah, you wasn't down with that. You was a slave. And that's okay. That's okay. Because we're doing our sheep herding right now, man. And inshallah ta'ala, bi'idhnillah, good things are on the horizon for us, man, on the other side. But we got to go through it. And this is the beginning stages. This is just the beginning. It doesn't end with this. This is just the beginning stages. And you will see as time goes on, if you guys can remain firm in your discomfort. The Prophet ﷺ gave glad tidings to the strangers. And that's what we represent right now. Because there's a large community and they are a loud minority, without a doubt. Loud minority. We've just been a silent majority. Afraid majority that don't necessarily agree, and that's okay. But you have to be able to stand in your discomfort. You have to be able to say, I'm okay with a person unfollowing me, unfriending me because you shared one of the posts related to this event. Don't post anything for them. Unfollow me. Cool, unfollow you. You can't let somebody say to you, if you post something about one of these events, then unfollow me. And you can't let that bother you. You have to be able to be able to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And if you're not, then you're going to constantly find yourself flip-flopping. You have no stability in your life. If it doesn't challenge you, it's not going to change you. So when we look at the story of Musa and Harun, we don't see just a biological bond of brotherhood, but we see in the face of real social work, a real mission, there's no room for ego. From the very beginning of that journey, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded Musa to go to Fir'aun, Musa turned around and asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make Harun his wazir, his comrade on this mission. Who does that? Because everybody's really looking for exclusivity. When we found something, we landed on something, we believe that that's ours. We take ownership of that. We don't want anybody to share in that journey with us. So Prophet Sulaiman, alayhi salam, he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said, Rabbi heavenly mulkin la yanbaghi li ahadin ba'di. He said, oh Allah, give me a dominion that nobody after me will have. That's the human nature. We want exclusivity. I want this all for me. Musa turned around and asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, make Harun my comrade on this journey. وَجَعَلْنِي وَزِيرًا مِنْ أَهْلِي هَارُونَ أَخِي أُشْدُدْ بِهِ أَمْرِي وَأَشْرِكْهُ فِي أَمْرِي. And when he made that dua, that is what made Harun a prophet. What man would make dua for his own blood brother to become a prophet right along with him and share in that journey? That shows you there was no ego. And it's his opposite. Yusuf and his brothers. Prophet Yaqub said to him, لا تبني لا تقصص رؤياك على إخوتك فيكيدوا لك كيدا. Do not, my son, don't tell your brothers about your vision, your dream, because they're going to plot against you. The total opposite. That's the norm. But what you see with Musa and Harun, there was no ego. I want my brother to share in this with me. And along their journey, right, when Bani Israel began to worship the calf, and Musa came back. And Musa was upset with Harun, and he asked Harun, why didn't you stop them from worshiping the calf when you saw them worshiping it? He said, Ya Harun, ma yamna'uka idh ra'aytahum dallu. Why, when you saw them going astray, why didn't you stop them? He said, أَلَا تَتَّبِعْنِي أَفَعَصَيْتَ أَمْرِي. Don't you follow me? Don't you obey my order, my command? Listen to what Harun said. No ego. Harun, he said to Musa, he said, يَا ابْنَ لَا تَأْخُذْ بِلِحْيَتِي وَلَا بِرَأْسِي. He said, oh son of my mother. Because he knew the relationship between Musa and his mother, and that was his way of de-escalating the situation. You see, Musa was enraged. Musa got so angry, he threw the tablets down. He saw his brother enraged, and he knew that the only thing that could calm the inner beast in him would be to remind him of his mother. He said, Ya ibn he said, oh son of your mother, don't grab me by my beard, don't grab me by my head. He said, Inni khashitu an taqula faraqta bayna bani Israel. He said, I was in fear that if I stopped them, you would have accused me or blamed me for separating and dividing Bani Israel. I let them worship the calf because by letting them worship the calf, they were at least united. And they would all be here when you got back, and then you could correct the situation. Although the right thing to do would be to concentrate on the asl, the foundation, which is to stop them from worshiping other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, regardless if they separate or fragment. But he exercised this caution because he wanted to make sure that he let Musa know that I'm still in sync with the mission. I'm still loyal to that mission of keeping them united. So I think I got 10 minutes left. Number 4, from the things that keep us divided and fragmented is the divide and conquer tactic that is used by the dominant culture, the hegemony. Here's a word for you. The hegemony. Our fragmentation and separation and division is by design. Make no mistake about that. It was by design even before we became Muslim, and make no mistake about that, it's still part of the design even while we're Muslim. In every time, in every era, there is a plot to keep the marginalized, the underprivileged, to keep them divided. Because they have the potential to upset the social order. And if any one of them, don't you know that there was a time in America where it was impermissible for black people to be educated? If you were caught with a book, you could be put into servitude. You could become a slave. You weren't allowed to be an educated slave. And we're still dealing with that right now, because when you say, well, what's the Sheikh's dalil? Who are you to question the Sheikh? Oh, okay. So the Sheikh can't be questioned. Here we are talking about Quran and Sunnah and bring dalil, but then when we ask that for the Sheikh, it doesn't apply to them. We're not Sufis. That's what they do in the Sufi tariqah. The Sheikh is above being questioned. Not in Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Not in Salafiyyah. It doesn't work like that. Dalil, evidence, no matter who you are. As Brother Imam Ali said last night, no one is above Allah's law. Nobody. Nobody. But you weren't allowed to be educated, and you're still not allowed to be educated. Because you can't take from him, you can't take from him, you can't take from him. Your children can't go to Islamic school, you can't pray over here, you can't pray over there. So we just, sisters can't work, right? You got to stay at home. Even if you got a master's degree, it's haram for you to work. So it's okay for our women to be on welfare, right? Get on welfare. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. We trying to get off of welfare. We come into Islam and we got scholars telling us it's haram for Muslim women to work. Going right back on the system. Think about that. And we're the only community in America that accept those standards. Because your position is Pakistani. Yeah. Miss Khan. She's Pakistani. Yeah. Your gynecologist. Dr. Khan, right? And it's okay for them. But for us, haram. Sisters having master's degrees, marrying brothers, and him telling you, you can't work. It's haram for you to work. You can't intermingle with the kuffar. But you can sell oils and touch the hand of women. But it's haram for her to go into a professional field and provide for the whole family, because what you making, the peanuts you bringing home ain't doing it. Now these are the standards that we've accepted. And it's okay for us to be like that. And I'm saying it's not okay. It's not okay. And we will no longer accept those standards. That's it. We're not accepting that. But the divide and conquer mentality, the fear is always there's going to arise. One of them, right? Because suppression breeds expression. When you are suppressed and you're suppressing emotions, feelings, you grow up in a family structure, family unit where you are not allowed to express yourself. You suppress your emotions and your feelings, and usually people who do that become very artistic. These people know how to draw. These people become entrepreneurs. These people become successful because they are expressing what they were not allowed to express when they were children. And growing up in these environments that many of us grow up in, we are suppressed, oppressed, and the hegemony knows that there's a potential there for one of them to, stick his head up and lead the masses. And that's why it's important to keep you marginalized. That's why it's important to keep you ignorant. That's why it's important to keep you blind following. Like Brother Munir said last night, to keep you an ass, a donkey. You're carrying around the books, but you haven't affected any change. As a matter of fact, you are affected by the change. You don't impact any change. And this is exactly what Fir'aun feared with Bani Israel, which is why he began to eliminate the males from Bani Israel, one after another. Because his fear was that one of them is going to rise up one day and challenge the social order. This is why people that were on this stage last night are so hated. Because you challenge the social order. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, showing you, as I don't give you anything without giving you dalil, that it is the mentality of the hegemony, of the upperclassmen, the 1%, to keep those who are fragmented, to keep those who are marginalized, those who are underprivileged, to keep you separated. Fir'aun, the Quran is the blueprint for all of this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, إِنَّ فِرْعَوْنَ عَلَى فِي الْأَرْضِ وَجَعَلَ أَهْلَهَا شِيَعًا يَسْتَضْعِفُ طَائِفَةً مِّنْهُمْ بِذَبْحِ أَبْنَائِهِمْ. In Surah Al-Qasas, Surah number 28, Ayat 4, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that indeed, Fir'aun ala fil ard. He put himself in a position of superiority in the earth, and he began to separate the people into Shia, into different groups. This upper class, middle class, lower class, this classism. And it goes on even in Islam. The classism, it goes on even in Islam. It's an African American, you walk in the masjid, oh brother, can you call the adhan? No man, I'm leading the salat. What are you talking about? Call the adhan. How much Quran you know? Alright then. What do you mean call the adhan? So just because I'm African American, you automatically going to shove a mic in my mouth and tell me to call the adhan while you lead the salat. Because that's automatically expected of you. That's what's expected of you, to call the adhan. Brother, call the adhan. No, you call the adhan. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that indeed Fir'aun has put himself above others in the earth, and he began to fragment and separate. وَجَعَلَ أَهْلَهَا شِيَعًا. He began to fragment the people, separate them into different groups and sects. And he began to يَصْطَضْعِفُ طَائِفَةً مِّنْهُمْ, marginalize a particular group from amongst them, killing their boys and letting their girls live. And this allows for the political machine to continue in its dominance over the minority, marginalized people, because it is a united minority against a divided majority. I'll say that again. It is a united minority against a divided majority. And the moment we love unity just as much as they love disunity, then we'll become a powerful force. We'll become a force to reckon with. We have to love unity just as much as others love disunity. I was just reading earlier on Twitter that there was a white supremacist march. And one of the white supremacists was standing there yelling, racial slurs, and a young African American man walked up to him and hugged him. You need a hug, man. I'm sorry your parents beat you. I'm sorry your mother was a narcissist. I'm sorry your father drank and beat your mother. I'm really sorry for you. But the world is not a place for that. You need a hug. And he hugged them. And some of these brothers and sisters would say, oh, don't listen to this one. He's a haram. He's this. He's a this. He's an ikhwani. And you need a hug, man. You need a hug. Really. I say this to my fifth graders. I have one who's always coming in. He has a hoodie on his head. He sits in the back. And every time he's not paying attention, I say, I'm going to walk in the back and I'm going to give you a hug. And he straightens up because that's uncomfortable. And I get it. Your parents don't show you love at home. I understand that. And that means, as a brother stopped me in the hallway, he said that we can begin changing our condition through love, compassion. And so when people meet you with all of this hostility, you have to confront that with compassion and love. Don't confront that with hostility. Allah says, idfa' billati hiya ahsan, repel evil with what is better. We don't meet fire with fire and end up with ashes. I'm not meeting you with fire and fire. You lie on me, you say this, I have no other choice but to be obedient to Allah concerning you. I don't mean I'm not going to defend myself. But even in me defending myself is mercy, because by me putting you in your place, perhaps you won't do it to nobody else. So with that, inshallah ta'ala, we'll stop here. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam tasliman kathira wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Inshallah, we'll continue this discussion at another time. Right now, what I would like for the brothers and sisters to do is to help the community out in covering the overhead for this. And if everybody could give, there's about maybe 200 people, 300 people in this room right now. If everybody gave $10, right, we could actually raise $3,000, $4,000 just on $10. And that's something that most of us are going to go out. We're going to go, I saw some of the brothers going shopping. Heck, I went shopping myself. Right? I went shopping myself. So I'll set it off. I'll start, inshallah ta'ala. And where's the sadaqah buckets, brother? Oh, come on, man. We're slow on the draw. We're slow on the draw, man. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Not asking you to give more than $10. If everybody in here gave $10, inshallah ta'ala, that would help to cover the overhead. Here you go, Sheikh. Since I started it, I'll leave with the first 10 right there. If everybody gave $10, that's not a lot of money. But collectively, when we put all of that together, it's a lot. And if somebody doesn't have 10, you can give sadaqah on the person that doesn't have 10 and give 20. Turn to the brother or sister to the right of you, left of you. If they don't have 10, I'm going to give 10 on your behalf. We would like one of you ballers in here to say, you know what, I'll cover the whole room and give right a check for 1,000, 2,000. I don't know. Are we built like that? I know some of the sisters are. $10, inshallah, if everybody can give $10. You want to give more than that? Alhamdulillah. I just started at 10 because I think that's something that's very easy for most people. Inshallah ta'ala, so if you have it, please leave with giving a donation, inshallah, $10 for the person. And inshallah, we'll do that again at the end of the night to see if we can help Master people who must cover their overhead, inshallah. This facility, this building, and everything, this costs a lot of money to have. And there's a couple of people who paid for this out of their pocket.
But we need
so we'll come in without we haven't prayed Asa. Asa is being prayed now. And we'll pray Salatul Fajr, as well as the prayer. We are going down to support the Inshallah, they'll pray Asa prayer.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. There is the next program coming on. The brother Sajid will be coming on, but we're going to offer Asa for those of us who are here. I know the travelers are in the congregation. Please make it on over to the convention center expeditiously so that we can pray and get back and enjoy the rest of the festivity. Alhamdulillah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Okay, for those who pray and stay. They are, but they should have